All right, so this is designing a game that looks like Fire Emblem for people who like Fire Emblem that is not Fire Emblem, also known as.
The design of sovereignty.
So I'm Mohammed Abdul Rahim. I'm the engineering and narrative lead of the project.
I'm Andrew DeBronkart. I'm the sort of gameplay director and car key loss executive.
Yeah, so who we are, we're friends for almost 20 years now, born on almost the same day, just a year apart. We accidentally caused a major incident at Chuck E. Cheese in around 2006, is that right?
Yeah, 2006 is right.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Cool. So, brief overhead of what this talk is. We want this to be sort of a gameplay-focused discussion on the design decisions we had to make around sovereignty, specifically around the expectations we expected our player base to have, based around their familiarity with Fire Emblem, which is a game that is, at the very least, superficially similar to Sovereignty. We basically want to have an open discussion on how you can craft elements in your game to help guide players to learning your game and potentially unlearning habits they've learned from other games.
Yeah, and what this talk is not is a hate session against Fire Emblem. We like Fire Emblem. Three Houses is really good. Our character artist basically does nothing but draw Fire Emblem fan art. You could follow her on Instagram and Twitter at Alatoad. So, yeah, we're not here to, be upset at Fire Emblem. We're just not making Fire Emblem.
Yeah, a principle that we sort of ran by is there's no reason to make Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem already exists, and Fire Emblem fans will play Fire Emblem. We're making a game that doesn't exist, new and cool. So cool. Just a brief gameplay overview of how Sovereignty works, so we're all on the same playing field here. You have individual stages that all have objectives that need to be completed to complete the stage, either routing the enemy or capturing resource tiles or surviving X turns, or there are sometimes bosses that need to be beaten. You're able to create different units on the fly, either through your T princesses, which are sort of like commander units, or through the resource tiles that you gather. Um, each of these units is fundamentally different, has a different role and function in combat. They can have even more abilities and different functions. If they were brewed by princesses, they imply special buffs to them. There is a whole principle of sort of map control in terms of gathering the resource tiles that you need, because they are so directly tied to your unit production and they're tied directly to your economy. There's a resource economy that you spend to make these units. Basically, even though we're drawing all these comparisons to Fire Emblem, there's more closer comparisons to Advance Wars with like a little bit of StarCraft mixed in there.
Yeah, so one of the things this talk is predicated on is the assumption that our fans are going to be bringing in knowledge from Fire Emblem when they play our game. And I guess there is some truth to say that if you're making a strategy RPG that is grid based, you're going to be inevitably compared to Fire Emblem. But just to confirm our theories, the first step we did real quick was look through our social media followings. Here are our primary accounts. There's the main Three Halves Games account, the lead character artist, who was aforementioned, a la Toad, as well as our art director, Gelato Bear. We just took a handful of the followers. We looked at what they were posting, what they were into, and yeah, even years after Fire Emblem was released, Three Houses in particular, people are still posting fan art, people are still cosplaying. It's a very obvious to us that they like Fire Emblem, and so with that knowledge, we can move forward. Yeah, this is actually very pertinent. The slide was added last minute because yesterday we had a streamer play the game, and they said this out loud. I'm in the Fire Emblem mindset of not wanting to send units in to die. Actual quote from an actual streamer literally yesterday, after we had already done the slides for this presentation. So incredibly pertinent and incredibly on the nose of what we're trying to solve here with our game.
Yep. So cool. One of the first sort of primary design problems or conflicts between us and Fire Emblem is the fact that you can create new units. In Sovereignty, there's tons. We say over 40 here. I'm going to trust that. There's tons of units that you can make. They're directly tied to your economy, as I mentioned earlier. If you don't have resources, you can't make units. If you want to be successful, you have to think about where you're brewing units and moving them. There's concepts of gathering resources and pushing forward in the map and pushing through that. This whole economy and brewing concept does not exist in Fire Emblem, and that is a problem that we need to address, right? Um, one of the decisions that we made early on to sort of mitigate that is we took the Tea Princesses, who are kind of the parallel to lords in the Fire Emblem system, in that if they die in combat, that's it, you lose, your game's over. And we made them fundamentally weak in combat. As a baseline, the Tea Princesses only do 1 damage on their attack action. The most basic combat unit, which is the Tea of War, does 2 damage, which is double that. Numbers are relatively low in this game, so ratios like that are extremely pertinent and important. Stronger units do somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 damage potentially. So we intentionally pull back the power on your sort of commandery units to incentivize you to brew other units and force you to use them.
Yeah, and another thing that's also important here, this is a screenshot from the first level of the game. If you were to play kind of poorly and bring your T Princess into direct combat, we made sure you had enough health that if you were to play the game as if it were Fire Emblem, you would hopefully very quickly realize, oh, that's a mistake. Have a little bit of a punishment, but not so severe that you instantly game over, such that you could learn from your mistake and correct yourself mid-level.
Yeah, we intentionally give you time to react and learn as opposed to learning through immediate failure state.
Yeah, this is not Dark Souls.
Right. So this leads directly into a secondary problem that we had to resolve, which is that units are expendable in sovereignty. You have access to tons and tons of units on the map at any given time, and fundamentally, when we realize this is a game where you might have 30, 40, 50 units to keep track of at once, we realize that they need to be cycling in and out effectively.
Yeah.
You can't be sitting and mitigating and managing 100 units at once in 1 by 1 tile-based systems like this. The problem this brought up is that in Fire Emblem, although there is the argument to be made that they are designed around the permadeath mechanics that are there is a culture around that game's community of wanting to keep your units alive, of wanting to reset when a unit dies, stuff like that, because of the permadeath mechanics. Can jump to the next slide, probably.
Yeah. Well, the other note here is that the screenshot's from an actual playthrough by a real human that I took from a stream, and they have like 20 of these units on this map right now. Like, you cannot possibly keep track of hoping all of them will live always. And in Fire Emblem, they solved this by not even allowing you to bring your entire party into a level. You
Yeah.
have to pick which units are going into the level, and they limit that hard limit per level. So yeah. What I want to talk about here is how we use some of the balance with numbers um, to achieve our goal of teaching that units are expendable. So here's the basic T of War. It has 2 attack. That's all you really need to know. 2 attack, 3 HP, as simple as can be. But the first special unit we give you is the Sacrificial T. Now, the Sacrificial T has 1 HP, 1 attack, but when it dies, it deals 3 damage to the thing that killed it. We wanted the visuals and the name to reinforce the concept here. So, the form should match the function. It's a big cartoon bomb. What happens when an enemy hits a big cartoon bomb? The big cartoon bomb goes boom, the enemy gets hurt. Just thinking about numbers, if the Sacrificial T were to attack, then get hit back and die, it attacks for 1, it gets hit, it explodes for 3, that's 4 damage. That's actually twice the basic T of War. So it's already twice as good in most combat situations. The problem is, this alone is not enough to incentivize the player to learn that units are expendable, because they simply would say, well, why would I make this? I don't want my units to die, they're so cute, right? So part of the way we incentivize them to want to make this unit is by having our first special coffee minion be the Caffeine Reaper. So the Caffeine Reaper has a lot of HP and a lot of attack. 4 attack, 12 HP, and whenever it gets a kill, it heals itself by 1. So Basically, that means it can one-shot the Tea of War, it could one-shot the Sacrificial Tea. Let's do some math. It's quick math time. If the Tea of War were to attack the Caffeine Reaper, it would hit for 2, get hit back, die, and then the Caffeine Reaper will heal itself by 1. You effectively only did 1 damage to it. If the Sacrificial Tea were to attack the Caffeine Reaper, you hit for 1, you die, you do the 3 bonus damage, it heals for 1. Now you did 3 damage to it basically. So the Sacrificial Tea, which was twice as good as the Tea of War in normal combat situations, is actually 3 times as good against the Caffeine Reaper than the basic Tea of War unit. And so these units were designed really, really early on, like before the prototype even.
These are
Like these were
actually
the first units we made. This
yeah.
balance was really important to find to make it so that you could learn this lesson. Um, Another sort of tangential point is Fire Emblem has this concept of counterattacking. You move next to a unit, you let the enemy hit you first. If you were to do that here, well, if the Caffeine Reaper hit the Tea of War, nothing, you just lost a unit. And if it were to hit the Sacrificial Tea, you'd end up doing effectively 2 damage to it, which is, I guess, infinitely better
Sure.
in this scenario, but it's not as good as if you attacked first. But that's a little bit of a tangential point.
Yep. So cool. This leads into third point that we need to teach the players, which is that combat is reaction based in sovereignty. Um, Specifically, well, let's talk about Fire Emblem for a second. In Fire Emblem, there are lots and lots of progression mechanics, right? Units level up, they can change classes as they level up. You have different weapons that you can equip and swap out, and there's the whole weapon triangle mechanic that's prominent over there. There are things like terrain buffs from forts and forests and stuff. None of that exists in Sovereignty. Most units only have move and attack actions. That screenshot on the right there is of the complete list of all actions that any units can undertake at any point in the game. Nothing outside of that list is possible in an action. Um, so the question comes up of, you know, we're removing this depth that Fire Emblem has, right? Where do we find our depth, if not in those sorts of mechanics?
Yeah, so the solution is to craft it very early on with abilities that are able to chain into other abilities when you get these chain reactions. And we already talked about one. The Sacrificial Tea gets hit and then it explodes and dies, and then the Reaper procs off of that. These are the types of mechanics that we want to build in the game
Hmm.
because if you're playing it really well and you get near the end of it, you can have some pretty crazy chains. It's kind of worth thinking of it as almost a card game, almost like Hearthstone in a way, is sort of the approach we were taking with our design. So another example of some of this chain reaction comes with these units from the second level. So to the right, you have a coffee unit, the hyperactive roast. At the start of combat, it's going to deal a damage to you. Before it gets to attack you, it deals another damage. Then it attacks you for 1 damage. Then at the end of combat, it deals another damage. It deals 4 damage to you in 4 separate instances of 1 damage. That basically completely wipes out the Tea of War. It will wipe out the Sacrificial Tea, and because it always attacks before combat, the Sacrificial Tea won't get its initial attack in. So neither of those units in a 1v1 can take down the Hyperactive Roast. But that's okay because we introduced to you the Tortoise Chaw on the left. And the Tortoise Chaw, whenever it gets hit, it deals 2 damage to the target unit. So if the Hyperactive Roast were to try to attack the Tortoise Chaw, the hyperactive roast will hit it for 1. Tortoise Chaw hits back for 2. Then it's going to try to hit it for 1 again, gets hit back for 2. And what ends up happening is you completely break its chain of attacks there early. But this is the sort of reaction based gameplay we're talking about when we talk about what design exists within sovereignty.
Another great example that came up early on. So we talked a little bit about how princesses in this game apply unique effects to the units that they make. Shomei's unique effect is that whenever a unit she brews moves, it will heal anything adjacent to the tile that it moved to by 3. Which is a cool. It makes Xiaomei like a support unit commander, basically, right? Now the regenerative chai over here is a basic healer unit. that has a weak heal action, heals for 1, but applies a regen buff, basically a heal over time effect, to anything that it heals. Now, what's super cool is if Shomei brews a regenerative chai, and regenerative chai moves next to a unit, the heal from Shomei's effect is now coming from regenerative chai and is applying regen to that new unit, uh, which is super duper awesome. We had a discussion about whether or not it was a bug when it first came up, and I was insistent that we look for things like this and try to keep it tied in because it's interactions between the abilities that we're attaching to units.
So at this point, you probably heard us discuss the most recent gameplay examples and are thinking, wow, that is nothing like Fire Emblem. And that's the point. Once we're able to establish this game is not like Fire Emblem, do not approach it with the same mentality as Fire Emblem, now we can go crazy with design and have a lot of fun with it. So here's a really fun series of interactions we had. Um, if you look at the bottom right, we have this enemy unit, the Bitter Battler. All you need to know is that it has 7 HP. You have a Tea Princess Dragonwell. Most Tea Princesses, when they make a unit, they buff that unit with some special ability, but Dragonwell is different. She buffs herself. So when she makes a unit, she gives herself a stack of a status effect called Dragon Power. And what Dragon Power does is it increases her attack by 2, and it increases her attack range by 2, up to a cap of 9. So effectively, with Dragonwell, you can brew a unit and then have 3 attack to hit something 3 tiles away. So if you were to do that with the Bitter Battler, it now has 4 HP left. Genmaicha is a different tea princess that can make unique sort of Japanese-inspired units like the Kunoichi tea, and the Kunoichi tea has 4 attack. So if you have Dragonwell brew a unit, then attack the Bitter Battler, and then move in the Kunoichi tea, you can actually kill the Bitter Battler all in one go. Originally, the Bitter Battler had 8 HP, is what Drew set its value to when I first playtested the level. And I was like, this has got to change. We absolutely need to make it so that this combo can pop off. And, players who've played up to this point in the game have found this combat or found this combo natively and have commented on how cool it felt when they discovered it. Another really cool interaction we have is between Mint, Ballet Tea, and Doppio. So in the bottom right is Doppio. It's an enemy. It has 6 HP. That's all you need to know about it. Ballet Tea has no attack, but it gets 6 move actions where it could move 1 tile 6 times. And every time it moves, it gains an attack. So if you manage to move 6 times perfectly and have good positioning and sort of set out your strategy correctly, you could end Ballet T's movement chain with 6 attack and hit the Doppio for 6 damage to kill it in one shot. That's already pretty cool. Adds a sort of new depth to territory control. But now we combo that with Mint. And Mint is a Tea Princess that any unit she makes, if that unit gets a kill, they get to take a turn again. They reset their turn. They lose 2 max HP to compensate. So if you're playing very carefully, you can have Mint make a Ballet Tea. The Ballet Tea could move 6 tiles, kill a Doppio, move another 6 tiles, kill a second Doppio, move another 6 tiles atop of that, kill a third Doppio, and at that point it has lost all its max HP and dies, which is really, really cool.
Yep. Two more mechanics here that really fundamentally change just the base core rules of gameplay. Uh, Mate has a passive effect that units that she brews come into play with stealth, which is an effect that makes it so that they can move through enemy units and can't be targeted in combat until stealth falls off. Stealth falls off when they take a hit from something, so you get the option to sort of sneakily make these assassin-style plays and kills. Uh, but if you're ever hit back, then the unit is stranded at that point. Glycogen here is a major unit with a lot of effects. The one that's important to this discussion is it has a taunt status effect on it, which actually a unit with taunt will influence the enemy AI to focus on it, and units will move towards it if it's present, and will try to attack it if they're able. Now, cool is these two things can work together. If Mate brews a glycogen, it will have taunt, and it will have stealth, and units will move towards it and not be able to quote unquote find it and attack it. so long as it has both of those effects on it. Um, Taunt falls off just as a balancing thing, and reapplies when glycogen attacks. So you're incentivized, even if you use this combo, to sort of stay in combat and continue chaining these things together. Even potentially, finding kills to keep the stealth up. Um, but yeah, both of these are mechanics that just sort of fundamentally change how the AI behaves, even. So very cool.
Yeah, and the cool thing is a lot of players who have played the game up to this point have found these strategies and then have messaged me and said, "Oh man, I think I found a way to break your game." But the funny thing is, they didn't. We balanced the game around these mechanics. But the point is, they perceived that they found something game breaking, and they're having a lot of fun with the game because they found something they thought was game breaking. And hopefully, at this point, they realized this is very fundamentally different from Fire Emblem. We like both; they're just completely different games. But thank you so much for watching our presentation today. You can wishlist or buy Sovereignty on Steam or itch.io. You can follow us on Twitter at Three Halves Games. Are there any questions for the two of us?
Hey, great
Yeah.
presentation. I really loved it.
Thank you.
One question. Speaking as the people who are going to go after you, who also built a game around sort of a strategy tactical RPG elements, what did you use for your? Did you code all the tactical RPG stuff yourself, or what did you code this in?
Everything was coded ourselves, but it was built in Unity.
Built in
Uh,
Unity. Okay.
we
Yep.
we only used two third-party packages. One was actually both of them are related to text and localization.
Hmm. All right. Well, good to know. You'll hear the alternative strategy in the next
Yeah.
presentation, I suppose, from us.
So, one thing this is a great presentation. You did a great job. I love the aesthetic of the game in general. One of the things that you kept mentioning though is like the problem is this isn't like Fire Emblem, and like, I guess what I'm wondering is like and like maybe this is just like the person me who thinks, oh, I should just be able to make whatever I want to make, and everyone will play it, and it'll be great. But is there a particular reason you felt it had to be approachable to Fire Emblem players? Is that because like that's just your target demographic, or it?
So when we were talking about the demographics, that wasn't something we were using to decide if we wanted to make the game. We just kind of had an idea for a tea versus coffee strategy RPG. It's just that we felt inevitably we are going to be compared to Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and when we looked at our audience, that was just more reinforcement of the fact that we are going to be compared. And there's a saying, that I mentioned earlier, that if you're making a strategy RPG that is tile based, you're probably going to end up being compared to Fire Emblem at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I
yeah,
think
that
I
makes
think
sense.
the decision-making flow really was more we realized that we were at least superficially similar to Fire Emblem. We then looked at our audience and said, okay, can we expect them to be coming in with familiarity to this game, which is frankly bigger than what we're producing? We were able to see, yes, okay, there definitely is that information available to us, and then it went, okay, well, how can we make design decisions to make sure that people don't uh, come in uh, playing the game in using learned habits that aren't like usable here.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm fascinated by like how people figure out what their audience is gonna be and grow their brand because like game dev a lot of people think game dev is like all about the programming and the art and stuff. So much of it is marketing. You guys seem to have done a great job with that. So mad props.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Do we have
Uh,
any more time for questions, or is that the end of it? I don't actually know how much time we have left.
You have a couple minutes if you want to take another one.
Yeah, sure.
silly question. Why tea?
Uh, so Drew's gonna love this story.
I already
Um,
do.
And why do you?
so one day I was looking at my cupboard, and I realized I have a lot of tea that I hadn't had. So I was like, I should try all of these. Um, Drank way too much. Like I think I drank maybe about 8 pots worth of tea that day. Uh, had a caffeine high, started like shaking and said, "I'm gonna make a video game about tea. I'm gonna make a video game about tea," and that was it, really. I mean, We like tea. We also don't dislike coffee, even if they are presented as the villains in the game. But yeah, I mean, we just like
That's
tea.
That's a very good origin story.
Yeah.
Fine line between madness and genius.
Yeah, don't I
Yeah.
recommend folks don't do that for your health. Just that's too much tea for a single person in a
Yeah.
single day. Don't do that.
But it's like that episode of Futurama with the 100 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that one episode in The Office where they get an espresso machine and try all the flavors, and then everyone like has an anxiety attack.
I'm just jumping in, not with a question, but a comment, which is that I am just in complete adoration of your UI and the way that your game store pages are all set up, and even the presentation. Everything was just so clean, and it was so like like satisfying in that almost ASMR way to view. So thanks for that.
Yeah, our art director did a really good job with the UI.
For
It
sure.
changed quite a lot up to the very last minute. All right, cool. Well, let's get to the next presentations. Really excited to hear what we have next.
Evan, if you're good to go showing Farmageddon, we're scheduled to show you at 7:50, but if you are ready now, you're free to start streaming.
So the thing about that, I will do that in a second. First, I want to introduce my fellow developers and co-commentators Spencer and Dan. If you guys mics working right now?
Hey.
Hello. Spencer is one of the two artists on the game and has done an amazing job. I'll show you in a second. And Dan, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, cool. So Dan was the AWS programmer and did the back end of the thing that made the game work. And full disclosure, this game is free to play, and you can check it out now. I'll post the link. We recently just ran into a snag which we are currently trying to fix. So I'm going to be using the dev environment to demo the game today, which is not publicly accessible, but it should be up pretty soon. I don't want to say when because it's not something I can guarantee. But the game is free to play, and if you download it, it should be working pretty soon. So yeah, and it may be working as soon as tomorrow if it's just a daily issue that happened with like the AWS stuff. But it's hard to say honestly. Anyway, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Because I did not actually prepare a fancy presentation like everyone else seems to have, because I was not aware. I should have been aware, but I wasn't, and so we're just kind of improvising here. But I would love my co-coms to chime in with any comments or thoughts they have about it. I'm basically just be doing what I usually do and improvising. Let me see. Is this? It should just be showing a Yeah, it's the right scene. Okay. So this is my IDE because we're using the test build, but I'm just gonna boot it up. I switch to full screen. So I'm gonna be quiet so you guys hear the amazing intro that
You didn't stream audio, I don't think.
it's not. Oh, okay. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see.
Just
Okay. So I have
close
to
that
actually
thing up.
stream. Yeah. So that's no. It's just a thing with the screen share versus the window share. So let me start it up, and I'll have to. Actually, I have an idea. Now that we're in the IDE, I can just set it up to set a breakpoint, which I shouldn't do, but this way you can get the intro properly.
Live demo, playing dangerous here.
Yeah, I don't really have a choice. I'm sorry. Let me see. So I'll just put a breakpoint here. Wait, that's not it. Yay!
Doing these intro slides is probably one of my favorite parts about working on this.
Oh my god, you did such a good job. All right, let me debug, and then hopefully I can just screen share. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. You know.
Everything is fine. Nothing is ruined. Oh, that's good to hear.
Okay, I think we're good. I'm gonna screen share this. That was my soundboard for anyone who's like, who said that? Boop boop boop. All right, you see a white screen. You should see a white screen.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. And I broke the audio. That's good. That's what we wanted. I got a better idea. Just gonna play it normally. Wait. What? Sorry, I was relatively ready to put this stuff for the slideshow, and then this error caught me off guard. So, all right, here we go.
Suddenly, a divine creature floated down from the heavens. I am the permanent prophet, the milking Messiah. I am the holy cow, she bellowed. I come bearing a gift with an otherworldly meow. She turned a patch of grass into a sparkling shade of gold. Once the farmers meet their end, to this pasture you must send. The biggest, strongest, toughest cow that makes the others wonder how. On this cow I shall bestow a gift that all will envy so. The cows didn't have much else going on, and so the game began.
All right, so what you just saw was the story intro for Farmageddon, which basically sums up what is going on in the game. And that was a joint effort between Tyler Ganelli, who is our music and sound guy, Spencer, who did the amazing intro slides, and our friend Tiggs, who did the voiceover. And it was just sort of a fun. This whole game was just sort of started out as like a fun sort of I want to make this, and then I may have honestly like got let it get away from me and just feature creep and all that because I tend to do that. And I have a habit of being very sorry. So one of the things I really learned from this project was map everything out beforehand and keep a handle on feature creep. As if I haven't learned that from every project I've ever worked on and then forgotten it. But yeah, this is the title screen and the main menu. We've got like basic stuff, but one of the things I'm very happy with is Spencer did great work on the cosmetics, which as you can see in the title screen, you can unlock a skin every day. It'll just randomize which skin you can unlock, and then if you play enough of the game, it'll unlock the skin. But you can also get like seasonal skin. This beach bum skin is seasonal, and that'll rotate. And there's still some tweaks and things we want to make to the game because we launched recently. I kind of want to keep it going with minor seasonal things, such as new skins and maybe like some cosmetic changes, such as like different terrain for different seasons. But that works. It works currently through Steam on Windows, and that was actually very difficult to set up. I don't know if we want to talk about that at all, Dan. But the coolest thing about the game is that when I made this game, I was like, okay, I want to make a link to the past. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the link to the past randomizers. But basically, the idea was you have what could be an open world game but isn't. A lot of these randomizers for RPGs do this, or similar kinds of games. You have an open world game where the only thing preventing you from getting from point A to point B is an ability you unlock at some point in the game. And what basically you would do is you would randomize the locations of all the items and where doors go and various other things. But the logic of the randomizer would make it such that you can still complete the game, even if it's all open to you, and there's no artificial barriers, just what you need to unlock for running your progress. And that was the original idea. It was you'd make a Link to the Past style game where people can play the game and it's random, and then like it'd be randomly generated maps. But the difference was I wanted to make it asynchronously multiplayer, and by that I mean, when you play the game, a ghost is recorded like Mario Kart that plays back the same way it started. So like if your run failed and it would we're gonna name this one Beef Stew. And we're gonna go into the game, and basically what you'll see here, I think I already used that name, but honestly, I might do. These are filler cows, but basically, you've got all these other cows. Not here, but you have to slay all the farmers, and then you'll get to the divine pasture, where a boss waits. And the boss and the other cows are actually based on real players that played the game in the same day. And this took a lot of work by myself and Dan of AWS stuff to figure out how to actually make it work. And I learned like consistency and clear legibility, because this is my first time really working with someone else on the code side of a game. So I really learned a lot, and I'm going to take it forward. I learned like you have to be consistent in your naming schemes. I learned a fair bit about solid programming, which is an acronym, which I'm not sure what it stands. I can't quite remember offhand what it stands for. But the basic idea is that you compartmentalize more. You don't give one function one object a bunch of different purposes. You keep it one purpose per object. And I need to get some weapons here, because otherwise this farm is going to just... There we go. So, my friend... Yeah, there we go. But the basic idea is that, I'm not sure why they're not showing up, because they were showing up earlier. They may just be somewhere else on the map. But if I die, which I'm likely to do here, you should see this cow playing back and be able to interact with it. And the same goes for the boss. The boss is the last person to win the game. It'll have the same inventory and same items in general and same health, relatively the same health. So we'll see if we can make the boss here, because that's where all the other cows are. But yeah, it's a really... The idea is to create an asynchronous battle royale, or a cattle royale. Because I knew I wanted to do something that was like... that's one of the things I do in my games. I don't want to do something I've seen done before. Which honestly is shooting yourself in the foot, because people like what they know. But I think I made something really fun, and by making it free to play, I'm hoping more people will check it out. Because again, like the main goal of this game is not necessarily to make money, but I would like to get my team's names out there. Because I think it's important to work on stuff you're passionate about, stuff you find interesting and silly. The origin story of this game was actually Pam, the artist who couldn't be here tonight. I tweeted something on Twitter. It was stupid when I was brainstorming this game stage. And I said something along the lines of, Brain, you should go to bed. Also my brain. Oh god, hold on. Also my brain, you should name cows in your game so you can call it Cattle Royale. And then I brought this up to Pam, she's like, but what if though? And so that is how we got started with this ridiculous game. And, oh god, you taking on my items? Okay. Okay. So we're probably gonna die. Yeah, we died. The boss cows are very tricky, but they're also based on how much health you have when you win the position of cow boss. There it is. There's another ghost cow. I don't know if you can see it. But you'll notice this has my username because it is played by me on Steam. But also the name I put in. So there's a lot of customization in this game. And sort of a in general, I want people to be able to feel like they own their cows as they're putting in the game. So they can really have a sense of, because I feel like customization in general has a lot of appeal to a lot of players, and it's fun to like insert yourself and do what you want with the game. Which is why the heads and bodies come in sets, but you can mix and match them. I think that was fairly easy to implement touch that I think adds a lot to the game. But I've been rambling here. I'm just gonna keep playing the game for a minute. Spencer and Dan, if you guys have any input, please tell us about the game and dev of the game.
Hi, I'm Spencer. I was the other artist. I got brought on a few months after work started on the game because they just needed some more help. Everyone has busy lives. I went to college with the other artist, and so she reached out to me with this. Originally, I was just gonna do items. Like I did, like the Bamuka, which is like the little bazooka he's at. Yeah. Like a little cattle prod. The Deja Mu, which was like that stopwatch that respawned. And then that grew also into me doing like UI elements because previously my specialization was user interface design. And also started doing skins, and that ended up being like a massive task unto itself. So the original just like black and white cow skins were designed and implemented before the decision was made to implement the different skins. So they weren't really optimized in terms of like layout for doing like doing that kind of customization. So originally I tried to just try to match as closely as possible, but I have a bit of a tremor in my hand, so like frame by frame animation has never been something I particularly excel at. And my first few attempts didn't work. They were imperfect, so they were kind of jittery. Then I made the models that exist now for at least the Jersey cow, the chocolate cow, and that black cow. I did them in vectors because I'm a sucker for pain, and had trouble getting all the the sprite sheets laid out exactly as we needed them. So I ended up trying like a bunch of different approaches, and eventually I decided like this is not sustainable as it is. So I overhauled the pipeline for character creation, so that everything could be done, like as much could be automated as possible, and that everything would be precise and consistent. So that involved breaking up most of the sprites into component pieces and animating them in After Effects, and then taking the motion data for each component part and bringing it back over, for each skin that was done. In some areas, it results in a slightly stiffer animation just as a result of doing like puppet animation, where that was going to be the most effective method. But overall, it maintains the same frame by frame look, and it just allows the whole process to be done a lot faster. Yeah, it was a lot of fun trying to come up with the individual skins, because I grew up in a rural town, so I did like 3 breeds of cows that I was familiar with, and then doing the special skins was its own little challenge. Like doing the beach skin, like what did I want to do to communicate it? So I thought like the moon goggles and a tank top. Originally, the shorts were like a reddish color, but it looked too much like a Hooters uniform, so we undid that and made them blue. And a robot cow had been high on the list for a while, and I tried doing like a more like stereotypical like toy robot kind of look at one point, but then I just decided, but what if it was a Tamagotchi? And I love how this looks so much. It doesn't come through as much in the animation because of how small the little face on the chest ultimately is, but it also gets angry eyebrows and frowns when the player attacks. I liked doing those little touches. And yeah, this is like the first game I'd been able to like work on as extensively since I had graduated college, and I was doing this while balancing teaching college classes. And yeah, it was a lot, but I'm ultimately like really proud of this final product. It's fun having to match someone else's style.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like I was wondering, because I know you said you were gonna put the frowny face on there, and now that I'm looking, I can actually see it. Because I didn't want to, I knew you had a lot of your places. I didn't want to bug you like, hey, I don't see it, but like, I'm so glad I can actually see it now. It looks so good. Like I love the Y2 cow. It's so good. All of these skins are top tier.
Oh yeah, I call it the Y2 cow.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Spirit of this game is the bad puns.
Oh, it's just look like all of the items in the game and like the death message. It's just the game is made of puns, and that was basically what we were going for. It's just cow puns to the game. I think we're really delivering on that, honestly, and like to the point where it's the little things, little like experiences, and little polished things that really add fun to a player's game. Like the gameplay is vital, and it has to keep you engaged and fun. But little elements, even so much of like humor in little places, which is not. I mean, some of the writing can be hard, but like implementing, for example, if I die like 2 more times, which I will do, for the sake of science, and for showing us, I'm in debug mode. It's fine. There we go. So you see, like we're having Moobot Steak tonight, and if we go again, we're Moobot the 4th. If we go again, Enact Vengeance. We're Moobot the 5th, and if we go again, it'll randomly append a name, like a title, to our end. So right now we're Moobot the Zombie. Let's see what else we can get. Your goose is cooked, also your cow. It's the death. Moobot again. So just little elements like that, you know, just that add replay that like, wait, what if I do this? What other Easter eggs can I find? It doesn't necessarily have to be a hidden Easter egg. Just little elements that add polish and fun interactivity to the game that encourages players to keep at it. I think those are very important. And just I don't know. I feel like a lot of games feel like they have to be like perfect or like flawless, and like it does definitely help to have like really polished elements. But like no game's gonna be perfect, and I feel like having heart is the cliche as it sounds. Having heart in your games is very important. And like as team lead, I definitely could have like been more clear about deadlines and communicating things, which I'm learning. But I think honestly, like the value of being like having a sense of humor and recognizing you're not taking the game too seriously helps it be what it is. That's not gonna work for every game, and I get that. But I think here it was definitely, especially with like COVID hit right smack dab at like halfway through development or something, and it was definitely a challenge to like coordinate the team after that. But I think honestly, I'm glad we were able to release this, even if we still got a few loose ends to patch up. I have heard from Dan. Dan, do you have anything you wanted to add?
I don't know. I mean, depends what you want me to talk about. Like you said, I did the back end development on the game, so I'm responsible for, what makes the multiplayer stuff work, and also responsible for what's currently broken. Yeah, I was actually brought onto the team by Spencer. He just brought on. He was on the Cleveland Game Developers Facebook group and said, "Hey, I'm working on a team that needs someone who knows some web development stuff." And I said, "That's what I do for a living." And I reached out to Evan, and that's how I got on the project. So I've been doing. We've kind of been having separate code bases within the project. He's been doing all the Game Maker front end stuff with the GML language, and I've been doing back end stuff in like TypeScript. So we have kind of been forced to communicate through, as he was saying, well-defined APIs with strong naming conventions and stuff like that. So it was a fun little challenge. Taking some of that web development experience and applying it to a game was something I hadn't really done before. So I'm fairly proud of how things have turned out.
Yeah. So I feel like that'd be good. Actually, I don't know what our time was at, but I feel like it's a good time to open it up for questions if anyone has any questions. And I'll drop the links for both the Twitter and the game itself, and any other relevant links in the general in a second. But yeah, that's anyone who has any questions or any comments, feel free.
Sure, I got a fairly abstract one here.
Yeah.
You said the game was kind of developed as you went, so to speak. You talk about feature creep and all that stuff.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So knowing what you know now, I mean, what would you change if you were to start it all over again? What would you change?
I would. Jesus. Yeah, right. Because I keep doing that. I would probably do a lot more research into solid programming and like I'd like declare comment blocks for like basically everything I want to implement. And if feature creep tends, I try and build like pipelines for different like elements of the project. So like I'd plan out the skins better. I'd plan out the back end stuff, and I'd work with. I'd make it more legible for like other people working on the project. I think a big part of it is I've only ever really coded it on my own, and I think that it's fine when you're working with the artist and just dragging the art in. But like when you're trying to make a project function with multiple people working on code, saying like a larger scale or more ambitious project, which this is starting to be honestly, because it has like online elements and that got pretty involved pretty fast. I think it's important that the team be able to communicate better with each other and understand what each other are going for. And half the time I don't even understand what I'm trying to do. So I think I just comment stuff out, make a design document much more early in development, which we do have a design document, but it kind of grew and warped. I just want to keep scope sane and just hear more about like the project. Because honestly, one of the things I struggle with I'm very creative, but I've always had trouble with organization, and so I really want to practice scaling things and just having an infrastructure, a project infrastructure, as it were, a development process that can work for multiple people. Because I know it varies from developer to developer and team to team, but I definitely want to work with people. Honestly, I want to look into like working for other like companies and like as like working my way up, or maybe just like finding game dev jobs that'll teach me more about the industry. Because I'm not. It's not like I'm not familiar with it, but there's always more you can learn. I think that's important.
If I may also
Yeah, go ahead.
include something. Yeah, if I had it all to do over again, it would be a design doc locked in a lot earlier on, more time spent in a prototyping phase, and I think we did playtesting fairly well, but it would be, improved by taking stronger notes. It's really all just like laying that foundational work really strong and solid in place at first to determine what is and is not core to the experience, and then developing those elements which are core and crucial before taking the time to go in and add everything else that's really just polish and like the cherry on top.
Yes, that's good. I mean, you're a professor. I'm gonna listen because, like, you know what you're talking about. And that is some good insight. I definitely think like figuring out what the game is very important, and that's the thing that I always felt like it kind of changes as you go. But even so, you don't want everything to change. You don't want to have to scrap the project, and that makes a lot of sense. But did that answer your question, Micah? Were there any other questions?
Yeah, as much, like I said, it's a pretty fuzzy, fluffy question anyways. So.
Yeah, no worries.
It's all good.
But yeah, one of the things we really need once the game is playable again is, just everyone. It helps everyone, but reviews really help. And since the game is free to play, and anyone who checks it out, and if you're able to leave a review, it really helps. Because we recently finally got enough reviews for Steam to rate us as positive. Because under 10, it doesn't even say that; it just says X reviews. So that's good. But we definitely need more to like get Steam Senpai to notice us. I would love to have this on itch.io. The issue, and it does have the instructions for other platforms. The issue is we do kind of need like a login sort of DRM. We don't need the DRM, but we need like a user system that I was unfamiliar if itch.io had when I just had the Steamworks set up. And so that was kind of an issue. What I published on Steam because it's what I knew. But I definitely have issues with Steam. Would love to look into itch.io in the future, especially if the game doesn't require like a login system or anything, which it doesn't, but it uses Steam's, if that makes sense, and transactions and things. So, any other game that wasn't like relying on the online systems, and I wanted to be secure and not hacked, I would probably look into to working with itch.io more.
I don't think itch.io, it's kind of sad. I don't think it provides the level of support as Steamworks does, because I really don't know. They have an app, but they don't so much directly rely on your account when you play games. Because when you download a game from itch.io, it's completely all separate from the app itself. You don't have to launch it through itch.io unless it's for the app.
Yeah, and like I love that for most games, but for a game like this, which has online infrastructure, it doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, the way I see it is that you have these battle royale moments, and then you have a boss fight. Will that just keep on going with increasingly difficult boss fights and enemies, or will you switch it up a bit?
So the whole point of the game is that it's community focused. That's why I want more people playing it, why it's free to play. So the boss is actually the last player that won the game.
Ah.
So the difficulty of the boss and how much health it has, what items it has, all depend on who last won the game. And you've got leaderboards for like who has been on the leaderboard the longest, which I can actually show it because So it's I died again. Let me So this is the dev leaderboard. So the only two people you're gonna have on here is me and Dan, because we're the only ones who have access to it. So you can see here. I think Dan, is this the updated after since you fixed the time limits? Or did that not happen on dev?
Should be, yeah.
Okay, so as you can see, Dan, I can't say it's all whether this is all in the game or not, but Dan's time is based on how many times he had a cow in the divine pasture. So there may also be some debugging stuff that may cause that. Mine may be more accurate for a total of 8 hours on the dev environment and 30 minutes and 13 seconds. I've had 29 minutes 30 seconds. I've had a cow in the divine pasture, and when the day resets, the new map shows up, and all that resets. So basically, in the new day, it won't be counting anymore, even if I had the divine pasture. But like, I can show you I can't show you the game feed for like the play game of the what is up right now because it's broken. But I forgot, I have to restream it again. Hold on. But if I launch it in the default mode, you'll be able to see who and what cows they've won with and things.
That's brilliant. Really good. You guys should definitely work more to highlight that, especially like in a added tutorial, because from the outset I don't see that it's a multiplayer game, or sorry, a game that's affected by multiplayer. I just see a standard, what's it called? A standard battle royale, but single player. You should definitely highlight that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's weird because like it's definitely a huge marketing point. It's not like a lot of the games I make. It's nothing like it's like nothing I've ever seen before. So I don't know how to market that. Like I say, you'll be playing against other. There's no quick, snippy way to market it. You know, so you can see. You see the Pasture Protectors. We've got Mia for 1 day, 9 hours, 3 minutes, and everyone else. This is how long we've been in the Divine Pasture. And then we've got all the recent winners and the cows they used to win with, which features the customization. Okay, well, I'm noticing one name in there that I maybe ought to slip away from, but it wasn't even that bad. Yeah, so that's basically the gist of it. I want to create something that was like an asynchronous battle royale, and I think I did a pretty good job with it. I hope you guys will check it out. Was there any other questions before we wrap up, or before whatever happens next?
Quick, if you can answer it quickly, what's next?
What is next?
For Farmageddon.
Oh, I didn't realize we were. Yeah. So what is next for Farmageddon? I would like to add like more skins for seasonal events or for seasons. I have a few ideas for like potential events things I want to code in if we don't move on to the next part before that. I would also have like snow and footprints for winter and maybe some fall colors for fall. Like because it has a date system that isn't really used right now. It's just each new day you get a new item or a new layout. But yeah, I'd love to do more with that. Anyway, sorry, I didn't realize I was over time. Thank you so much for having me and everything. And I'll put the links in the chat.